The 49ers regular season finale all comes down to this. 49ers Seahawks division rivals, no margin for error, the number one seed, a bye week, home field advantage, all hang in the balance. We're going to break down all the key matchups for this one and what it's going to take for the 49ers to come out on top against Seattle on today's 49K Pod.
You're listening to the 49 Carats podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats podcast. I'm your host, Steph. It is Friday, January 2nd. It's officially 2026, and I know it's been a minute since I've done a show, so thank you guys for, being patient for the next show. It's today. We're previewing this big game happening tomorrow on Saturday. But yeah, the holidays were great. Hope all of you had a great holiday break as well. Took a much needed break. So yeah, now ready to lock back in and get into it. And there have been no breaks for the 49ers, but they seem to be doing well in any case and going into this game hot. So excited to preview this one with KP. KP, how you doing today?
I'm good. It has been a while since we got on here. It feels like it's been forever. But after last week, what better way to kick it off again, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. I've been very happy enjoying these games. Like as a fan, like I went to the Bears game and that one was like electric. It was playoff atmosphere, as you can imagine. And the faithful are going to kick it up a notch in Santa Clara for this week 18 game, which is, man, this is very reminiscent of a lot of matchups that these two teams have had, just like coming down to the wire, final game of the season. We know how those go down. It comes down to the wire every time. So excited to preview this one. As you guys could see, if you're watching on YouTube, we don't have Desi today, unfortunately. She's out sick, so hope Desi feels better. But we're going to talk about these injuries first and foremost, as we always do. So let's see, because these are some very important injuries that we're talking about, KP. So obviously Trent Williams with the hamstring injury, he did not finish last week's game. Austin Pleasance filled in at left tackle and filled in okay, but he's listed as questionable, Trent Williams is, after not practicing all this week. So he seems to be more on the negative side of this questionable tag here. If the 49ers did have to go into this game with Austin Pleasance starting, how confident are you feeling? He's no Trent Williams, but could he get the job done?
Yeah, I think it's more about how aggressive can Kyle Shanahan be? We're probably going to see some kind of filling out process where, hey, if it looks like Austin Pleasance is holding up, we'll be able to run more of our stuff. But if the Seahawks are getting the best of Pleasance, maybe we see more of a conservative. Maybe we see just a different game plan where it's quick hitting passes. But I really think we're going to see the biggest difference in the running game. Obviously, I don't think many people are aware of how dynamite Seattle's run defense is. They're just really, really, really good. And when you lose a player like Trent Williams who plays the way he does, that's when you're really going to notice it.
Yeah, for sure. So, we'll continue to win on that one. We'll know for sure when the actives and inactives are announced, before the game. But yeah, seems like we won't be having Trent Williams if I had to guess on that one. Now, the good news is that after missing last week's game, George Kittle seems to be on the favorable side of this questionable tag with his low ankle sprain that he had suffered a couple weeks ago. He said he expects to play, so I think we should go into it expecting that he does, and that should be a huge boost for this team. It seemed like he was maybe this close to playing last week, but just on the short week, a little tough to swing going into another tough week. Having him a little closer to 100% this week, I think is good for the 49ers.
Yeah, I think Adam Schefter said before this game that Kittle didn't even test his hamstring test his ankle last week. So it's almost like they knew, hey, we're just going to give him a week. We know what's on deck in week 18. And last week, I thought the 49ers knew that they could get away with not having Kittle just based on the defense they were going against. And obviously against this kind of defense, it's just night and day. So you're going to need all hands on deck, and that's where Kittle comes into play.
So Ricky Pearsall, who also missed last week's game with the knee ankle injury, he's questionable. Also feel good about him returning to the lineup this week. So that's going to be huge just for this offense. And I agree. Like, I was actually surprised by how the 49ers were able to, move the ball even without Kittle for some of that game. And then they didn't have Pearsall. So I think it just speaks to how the 49ers offense is just moving right now, how Kyle Shanahan is calling plays, how Brock Purdy has been executing. So to have those guys back in the lineup against the Seattle defense is going to be huge because it's not going to be easy. So it's big.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Just your two best players, basically, outside of Christian McCaffrey, of course, but you really are going to need every yard, every point, and we're going to get into what Seattle's brings to the table on the other side, but they're going to try to take away one or the other, and you can't take away both. So that's where having both of these players on the field is going to go a long way. Remember, week one, Kittle only played like 20 snaps or whatever, but came out balling. Like, they gave him the ball early and often, and he came through every time for them. And then when he went down, it was Pearsall who had like those big plays that they really needed in this one. So I think just having both on the field, Seattle hasn't really seen it look like this. So.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. And on the defensive side, you have Upton Stout, who still is in concussion protocol as of yesterday. He's questionable for this game. That one seems to be kind of up in the air. It really depends on if he's able to get through that final step before game time. So we'll continue to wait for that, inactives before the game, but Upton Stout questionable, and Keon White with a groin injury also questionable. So all in all, like, could be much worse for the 49ers. Like, questionable is definitely better than doubtful for like Trent Williams, for example, better than out. But yeah, I think having guys like Kittle and Pearsall back alone is a big boost, and that gives me some confidence in this game status report. Now, on the Seahawks side of things, their left tackle has been declared out, Charles Cross, also dealing with a hamstring injury. And their safety, Kobe Bryant, who's missed several weeks, he's doubtful with the knee injury. And their other tackle, Josh Jones, ankle and knee injury, questionable. So given Charles Cross injury, the 49ers pass rush hasn't been anything to write home about. Do you think this is any advantage to the 49ers at all, or, it's kind of a moot point?
Well, honestly, so Cross is a very good player. Like, he's a first-round pick, and I think he actually deserves – like, he's one of the players who you look back and like, oh, he should go in the first round. Without him, they do look like a completely different offense. Sam Darnold doesn't look nearly as confident. So, like, when I watch him, you can tell that they're missing an offensive lineman, whether that's on the ground and in pass protection. And Jones, like you said, he didn't practice all week. So he's questionable. He's going to be playing on a short week. The 49ers defense needs as many things as they possibly can to offset just the product that they put on the field. But I do think you'll notice that Cross isn't on the field. You'll notice that the Seahawks are playing with a backup. So I do think it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, I agree. We'll see how it unfolds for this game, but Cross already declared out, so that should help the 49ers. Definitely won't hurt. Now, much has been said about the weather for this game. The Bay Area has been a very rainy place as of late, and that's no different for Saturday's game. So looking at the day and nighttime weather, of course, this game starts 5 p.m. Pacific time, so there's going to be showers throughout the day, which means, that Levi's Stadium turf or grass is going to be, pretty wet by the time the game actually starts. And the showers are going to continue throughout the nighttime as well. So it doesn't seem like it's going to be a torrential downpour, but certainly high chances of there being some showers throughout this game. Now, given that, I do feel like this is an advantage to the Seahawks because they're used to weather like this. They practice in it probably all the time up in Seattle. And there's this narrative, right, that Brock Purdy struggles in the rain and all that. Didn't seem to impact him too much, in Cleveland, where I know it rained a bit. KP, is this a big deal for the 49ers, or are you not too worried about it?
I really don't think so. I actually was leaning the other way, where I think it impacts Seattle more.
Okay.
So sloppy footing, maybe that leads to one or two more missed tackles. Like they're as clean as it gets in the tackling department. Maybe it slows down a pass rush that's going to probably want to pin their ears back. No, assuming that the 49ers aren't going to want to run the ball. So I also look at it where Darnold, right? Like he's been prone to mistakes, and with like how he plays a little recklessly. He loses a lot of fumbles. He turns the ball over quite a bit. He puts the ball in harm's way. And I think with the awful bounces that they've been getting all year on some of his interceptions, like why would that get any better in these kind of conditions? So I think if anything, the weather is going to somehow play out into the 49ers' favor. If not, again, neutralize an advantage that Seattle has.
Well, I like the sound of that. So that does make me feel a little bit better. I think you bring up some good points. But for the fans who are going to be in attendance, bring your umbrella, bring some raincoat, whatever you got, poncho, to try to stay dry out there and continue to be loud anyway. Like you got to still bring the playoff atmosphere, even if it's going to be chilly and rainy. Let's take a look at the Seahawks offense first and foremost. So, we've talked about Sam Darnold already. They kind of have like a 2 running back approach, 1A and 1B in Ken Walker and Zach Charbonnet. And on the outside, you got Jackson Smith and Jigba, who has huge involvement. We'll talk more about him in a bit. You got Cooper Kupp in the slot. And then Rashid Shaheed, who was one of their trade deadline acquisitions. They're getting him back this week, right? Because I think he had missed some games. So, yeah, he's going to be back in the lineup. And I would imagine, potential X factor, I think. But talking about the offensive line, we already mentioned Charles Cross is going to be out for this game. Josh Jones, questionable, but we have him here for now. Gray Zabel, really good offensive lineman. You got Sundell, Anthony Bradford, Abe Lucas. And then their tight end, AJ Barner, has been pretty good for them as well. Which brings us to our first cautious matchup. And I think like the biggest thing is always Jackson Smith and Jigba, just because he has such a huge involvement in this offense. 1,709 receiving yards, that leads the league among wide receivers, 10 touchdowns, that's tied for third. And so even seeing what he did in week 1 against the 49ers, right? He had huge involvement in that one. He had 13 targets, 9 catches, 124 yards, 13.8 yards per reception. So, he gets the ball downfield as well. In that game, he was targeted a career high 61.9% of his routes. So that gives you an idea of like just how much Sam Darnold is looking to him. And again, that was week 1, but I don't think his involvement has really tapered off at any point. Anyone who has JSN in a fantasy football league knows that. But yeah, this is just crazy production from Smith and Jigba, and I think the 49ers are going to have their hands full. I mean, we talk about this 49ers secondary, the defense in general, just kind of what it's missing out there, right? It feels like this is one guy that Robert Saleh is going to make sure he kind of has all hands on deck for.
Yeah, it's weird. Like he's their passing offense. Like, everybody knows he's going to get the ball, and he still like balls out every game. Like, if that's not the sign of like a star player, what is? Last week, 12 targets. The week before, 13 targets, 9, 10. There's other games, 10, 12, 14, 13, 10. Like he's their passing game. And for whatever reason, they always find a way, it seems like, to, whether it's a first down, whether it's an explosive play down the field, is get him involved. So it's going to be a challenge. I'm pretty fascinated to see what angle Saleh takes. Do you have the confidence to play man coverage, which might open up a running lane for Darnold, but you're also susceptible to like these one-on-ones on the outside. And he hasn't really done that, but in the same breath, they've been doing it more and more over the past few weeks since the bye. So like if I'm going to do something, I'm going to speed Darnold up, and I'm going to make him prove that he can complete passes in man coverage. So like you don't want to go down, you don't want to lose the 1 seed because you're playing passive, right? And that just doesn't seem like who Saleh is at his core. So I really do think they're going to have a couple different change-ups, obviously, for JSN, but there's no doubt he's a stud, man. He's really impressive. Just sucks that we see him so much, and like whether it's a highlight, whether they're getting ready to play the 49ers getting ready to play the Seahawks, it's always something JSN with a bunch of very good stats behind him.
Yeah, and in that week 1 game, he had at least 1 catch against 6 different 49ers defenders, but it was mostly Renardo Green lining up against him, who allowed 4 targets, 2 catches, 51 yards across 7 matchups. Now, I know that both Kyle Shanahan and Robert Saleh got the question of, would you have Deommodore Lenoir shadow JSN? To which I would say, like, Robert Saleh didn't shut it down, but also didn't seem like it was something he was seriously considering.
Right.
Now, do you think that's the right approach? I mean, Lenoir hasn't shadowed anyone all season, right? So why would they change their philosophy and how they're doing things now?
Yeah, he's just not really like that kind of cornerback. And if he was, I feel like we would have seen a lot more man coverage this season or a situation ever that he's followed somebody, and that hasn't been the case. And why do it with a guy who leads the NFL in receiving yards? I thought Saleh's answer was pretty interesting when he was like we could, but if we did, that would make 10 other guys uncomfortable, maybe, or at least 4 to 5 in the secondary having to defend. So let's say JSN goes to the slot, and now Lenoir goes to the slot. So you put Stout on the outside, and now he has to go against maybe a bigger matchup or a matchup that he's not used to playing. Now maybe a safety has to go on the outside and play cornerback. So it's the trickle effect. The trickle effect just really isn't worth it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's another reason why we haven't really seen that this season.
Yeah, I think that was pretty insightful for him to say. And I'm going to mention just one more thing on Jackson Smith-Njigba. Like, Seahawks average 6.6 yards per play when he's on the field versus 3.6 when he's not. Now, I'm not going to say that Rashid Shaheed is a cautious matchup necessarily, but I do see him playing some type of role in this game. And I could see just the magnetism of Smith-Njigba, the Seahawks using that to their advantage and going deep on a Shaheed shot downfield, right? Like, I could see that, and I could see the 49ers, maybe giving that up, or, maybe it's an overthrow or something, right? But we've seen teams look to take that deep shot against the secondary last few weeks. Has worked sometimes, hasn't others, but I do feel like that's something that the Seahawks are going to want to do, especially given that, Shaheed's coming back after multi-game absence. So that could be an X factor, I think, in this one, just kind of using the allure of Smith-Njigba to their advantage.
Yeah, no doubt, right? The gravity that he creates is the same that McCaffrey creates for the 49ers. And at the same time, you would want to go down swing. You would want to lose. If you lose to Shaheed on a post, then you lose to Shaheed on a post, right? But that's going to happen. That's going to have to happen 3-4 times over the course of the game. Whereas JSN, the last thing you want to do is have him get rolling and get going and see, quote unquote, the ball go through the hoop because he was able to create a big play. So you just can't lose to him. He cannot be the reason that you give up a big play over the top, which is why you're almost, I don't want to say comfortable, because it's not like Shaheed's not a quality player, but you're better off having that big play go Shaheed's way.
And while we're talking about Shaheed, because I saw this comment earlier, and I don't want to wait too long to get to it. Roger asked, can Pinheiro kick it through the end zone so Shaheed can't return it? He's my X factor in this game. So even like from the special team standpoint, I mean, I think we got to think about just how Shaheed could change things for the Seahawks in possibly a positive way. The 49ers special teams has been pretty good, both from the coverage standpoint and otherwise. But what do you think? Do you think this is something they're going to try to emphasize? Just don't kick it directly to him on these kicks.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's easier said than done. It's almost like Sky Moore with the 49ers, where it almost seems like he finds a way to hit that crease, like once a game, once every other game, and that's usually the difference with the 49ers, with the Seahawks getting points. So I would not want anything to do with him in the return game. Like, he really is that big of an impact. Like, his speed does make that much of a difference, but also at the same time, you kick it out of bounds, you squib it, and it goes the wrong way, and now it does bounce out of bounds, and now you give them a short field. So it's kind of a catch-22, and teams are dealing with that with the 49ers as well. Yeah, I mean, kick it out of the end zone, right? All else fails, kick it to the back of the end zone. So that would be the approach that I would take.
Yeah, and we'll see if Brent Boyer and Pinheiro have the same plans. I would think so as well. Like you can't just make it easy on them. Let's take a look at the Seahawks defense. We've got Ty Okada as one of the safeties since Kobe Bryant's still out. Julian Love, linebackers Ernest Jones, Drake Thomas, their corners Devin Witherspoon, Nick Emmanwori, that big nickel. The safety, Josh Jobe. And then on their defensive line, a lot of great players there as well. DeMarcus Lawrence, Leonard Williams, Murphy, Reed, Uchenna Nwosu. So, we've kind of sprinkled in some thoughts on this Seahawks defense already, right? Like, this is a really strong group, especially in run defense, right? So, that's kind of like where I want to get started. And look, I kind of made this cautious matchup not really matchup specific, because I think it just more broadly, the Seahawks defense is really good, but there's several layers to it that I think are good and are cautious for the 49ers, right? Talked about the rushing defense. They're allowing 3.7 yards per carry to opponents. That's best in the NFL, and 94.1 rushing yards per game to opponents. That's third. So to that point, don't expect this to be a big Christian McCaffrey game on the ground, despite, maybe the 49ers doing better in the blocking area. But, we mentioned earlier, Trent Williams being out is going to probably play into the Seahawks' hands even more with this. So that's one. Anything you want to mention on just like the rushing defense before we get into the other factors here?
Yeah, so when I watch them, like, it comes off as if like this is one of the best run defenses that you've seen in a long, long time. And then when you dig into it, I was looking at some stats and whatnot, and like against the run, they're pretty much the best run defense going back to 2018, top one or top two in DVOA. So they just don't allow anything. They have like they were one of the top defenses at allowing 10 plus yards carries. They're in the top, inside the top 7 in both stuff rate, yards per contract. They have the lowest EPA per rush by a wide margin. You don't really get over on them. A lot of that is because they're very good at tackling in the open field. But I mentioned the Trent Williams because now Austin Pleasance goes from pass rush first players, right? The Bears are more of a finesse type of defense, and this is just not what Seattle is. DeMarcus Lawrence is not a finesse type of player. Byron Murphy, Leonard Williams, like they're all very disruptive, very athletic, and just stout. So it does make for a very difficult matchup for the 49ers on the ground.
Yeah, and there's a couple things on like passing defense as well that I would, just be weary of. They're definitely not as good passing defense as they are in rushing, but still they're 7th in completion percentage allowed. And the Seahawks, who mostly play in cover 3 and cover 6, maybe that's something that Brock Purdy would struggle with against those coverages. He has 5 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. So they could force Brock Purdy into some mistakes. I mean, he threw 2 interceptions in that week 1 matchup as well. Now, Brock Purdy, as the starting quarterback for the 49ers, has a good record against Seattle, but Mike McDonald and just the system that he runs and what he's built with the Seattle defense, I think, matches up really well to this Kyle Shanahan offense and Brock Purdy. So that's something I'd be somewhat cautious of. I'll get into, what I think about the 49ers passing game and all that a little bit later. But I do think maybe at times you see some struggles.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. So it goes without saying, the team that has scored 40, 37, 40, like that's probably not going to happen against Seattle. But I do think that we see some success here. I think what Seattle does well is just take away everything outside the numbers. They have 2 really rock solid cornerbacks. They're very good tackling. I keep mentioning that. And then they're good on the ground. I don't think Shanahan's going to waste much time like going out of his way to establish the run. I think instead we see more short passes. We see, much like McCaffrey, have an opportunity to really turn some 3 and 4 yard gains into 6 and 7 yard gains. And that could be the difference, right? Of staying out of 3rd and long. And Seattle's really, Mike McDonald in general, dating back to his time with the Ravens, like they're a middle funnel defense. Like they're going to let you, not so much let you, but they're okay with you throwing balls underneath over the middle of the field. And that's exactly what the 49ers want to do. So the 49ers love to live in between the numbers, and Seattle likes passes or allows passes over the middle. So if anything, one of the few offenses in the NFL that does match up well with McDonald, and having Kittle healthy, having a viable tight end will go a long way with that.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about that guy, George Kittle, in a bit here, not to give too much away. But one last thing to point out, they're pretty good at forcing turnovers as well, tied for 5th in takeaways per game. So again, I was just talking about the interceptions Brock Purdy threw in the last matchup. He's been a little bit better, I think these last few weeks, of course, but just something to be mindful of. I think they'll be wanting to get their hands on a turnover, especially for a game like this. Those are just the type of things that could swing momentum big time in a game like this. But the good thing for the 49ers now getting to favorable. I mean, we're talking about the 49ers pass game. I do think the 49ers are primed to have some success there. I do think the returns of both Ricky Pearsall and George Kittle are going to prove to be huge. Let's start off with Ricky Pearsall, right? So before he got hurt between weeks 1 and 3, he led the NFL 264 receiving yards on downfield throws. And I know it was a slow go when he came back from his injury, but the last 2 weeks, he's caught all 7 of his downfield targets for 141 yards. Last 2 games, I should say, that he's played. So I think that's huge for the 49ers. I mean, he has a specific role in this offense, and I think he plays it really well. He's able to get open. And just those anticipation throws that he has, or Brock Purdy has, throwing to Pearsall's way, I think has been smooth as butter for this offense. And so I would expect that we see a bit of that in this game as well. And then George Kittle, we mentioned it, right? In week 1, he was primed to have a big game, 4 catches, 25 yards, and a touchdown in just like the 20-some snaps that he played. And in the last 2 games, he's had at least 8 targets and a touchdown in each of those. So the 49ers want to continue to use George Kittle and want to continue to involve him. I got to think there was a reason that he was so involved in that week 1 game in the short time that he was in it. It's because there's probably a matchup that they liked. I mean, KP, you just talked about the middle of the field and how that could be open for the 49ers. I mean, that's probably something that Kyle Shanahan saw even for that week 1 matchup, and using George Kittle in that way, saw him as a favorable matchup. So I think these are 2 players, among others, like Christian McCaffrey is going to get his as well, maybe Juwan Jennings in some spots. But I think these are the guys that are primed to benefit most from what we were just talking about.
Yeah, so for all the things that Seattle does well, and there are a lot of those, they are 19th in DVOA and defending the tight end. Like they are truly a middle pass funnel defense. They are 13th, I believe, or no, they're 14th at defending slot receiver. So you mentioned anticipatory throws. Last week, Purdy had one to Pearsall. It was like an 18-yarder, and he threw it before like Pearsall's head even turned around. Like that is what they will need this game. And I think Pearsall can really make Seattle play in that intermediate range, that 15 to 18-yard mark. And Kittle can just be like 7, 8, and then eventually take chunks with take shot plays down the middle with him. So like both of these guys should really have I think they'll be the focal point, just because, one, you're going to go down swinging with your best players. You're not going to go into a week 18 matchup with the 1 seed on the line, heavily involving Demarcus Robinson, like respectfully, who I think is going to be like, who has made plays, he's proven his worth, but like, it's going to be a Pearsall game. It's going to be a Kittle game. It's going to be a McCaffrey game. But yeah, what Kittle did in that basically first series and a half, for him to be as involved and for him to come through, like those were first downs, those were touchdowns on that sheet. So for him to do that, it does signal that Seattle is just kind of leaky over the middle. I think the the areas where Seattle's weakest in the passing game, defensively anyway, is where the 49ers are the strongest. And that's why I do think they have the advantage on this side of the ball. And again, it really does help that they have a quarterback who can thrive under chaos, and it just doesn't hit the panic button, doesn't just regress when there is a bunch of pressure around him.
Yeah, indeed. We got a super chat. Says, don't forget we don't have Moody to miss 2 field goals. I have even forgotten about that because it's just so much in the rear view. We got a kicker that actually does his job now that, just that's water under the bridge. But I mean, that's a great point for a game where you expect it to go down to the wire and you have such small margins for error. I mean, something as simple as missing 2 field goals could be everything, right? So I think 49ers should feel a lot better about having Eddie Pinheiro making these kicks over Moody.
Yeah, you have a kicker who has only missed 1 kick, and that was just career long, basically, right before the half. It's just the most low pressure kick. I don't even think they were expecting to make it. The fact that they even got in position to make it is like whatever. But over the course of the season, I think when Shanahan sent Pinheiro out for a 59-yarder against the Rams, like that told me, oh, like they really believe in this dude. Like he must be very good. And sure enough, he hit it. And he's been as consistent as it gets. So, yeah, it's wild to say, but the 49ers have a special teams unit, have a kicker that is arguably like the best in the NFL. Like in hidden points, they are number 1. There's a lot that points to their just them being so good in the special teams area, and Pinheiro is a big reason why.
Yeah, and again, this could be a game that comes down to field goals, right? Like in some cases, so that I'd put advantage on the 49ers there. Now, this question, do you guys see us using a bit more 12 and 22 personnel this week? KP, I'll let you take that one.
I think they should, because for whatever reason we only see Jake Tonjes when Kittle's not around. Mm-hmm. But when he does, like last week, like he comes through time and time and time again. I mentioned Seattle is a team that wants you to throw the ball over the middle. So why waste more receivers on the field when you can have more big bodies? Tonjes is 240, a good athlete, has really good agility, can change direction. And when you have that and Kittle on the field at the same time, like that forces, whether it's Tonjes, whether it's Kittle, to be guarded by a linebacker, to be guarded by a safety. And that's what you want. And what does that mean? Now McCaffrey is being guarded by the same person in a passing situation. Or you also, maybe you get Eman Wari, their stud rookie. Now he has to run through a block of a tight end or a lineman instead of a wide receiver. So it would make a ton of sense for the 49ers to obnoxiously shrink the field, really, really step it up with 12, 22, 13, however many personnel. It would help that Kyle Juszczyk is healthy, and I think he is. I think he's going to play. I know he didn't practice, but just getting all those 3. And Farrell had some good blocks last week as well. So, yeah, I think we see more and more tight ends than ever to not only protect Purdy in the passing game, but to just get favorable matchups, which just means more tight ends means one of their big guys is going to have to guard 85.
Yeah, that's a great point. And, I've been surprised, actually, that they haven't used Tonjes a little bit more with Kittle on the field. Like, we just haven't seen it. And, that's given that Tonjes has been so good as a pass catcher, right? And filling in, on those times Kittle has been out and getting touchdowns. So it just feels like, you could get into some good matchups that way. And, I think that's something the 49ers should do, but we'll see if they do. At best, or at worst, it would just have the Seahawks be a little caught off guard by that, just something that the 49ers haven't done a whole lot of, but, You
also don't have Trent Williams, maybe, assuming he doesn't play. And another way to protect him, more tight ends, more fullbacks, more running backs his way. So, again, the situation calls for more tight ends, for heavier personnel.
Indeed. Thank you to our new member, ZX7MCM. Appreciate it. Welcome to the 49K Club. All right, let's get to this final favorable for the 49ers. The Seahawks are a bit turnover prone, right? And this is something that has showed up for them all season. All right, so I'll go through some stats here. They're 31st in giveaways per game. They average 1.8 giveaways per game. Sam Darnold himself has been a huge reason for that. He's turned the ball over on 7.8% of his pressure dropbacks this season. It's highest among quarterbacks. He's allowed 6 interceptions and 5 fumbles lost this season. And in week 1 against the 49ers, he had a fumble, and JSN had 2 of his own. So it shows up, right? And again, for a game like this, I know we were talking about the takeaways that the Seahawks defense is able to get, but equally, like, the Seahawks offense is just as guilty of giving opposing teams opportunities. So I think this is a game where we do see a pivotal turnover and it swing the momentum of the game. So what do you think? Is this the 49ers opportunity to a victory here?
This is where the rain will really come into play, if it is coming down during the game, just because he does not hold on to the ball. It's so wild to watch, because I don't think Darnold's a bad quarterback at all, but just situationally, he isn't good in situations where you need to be. So another thing that really stands out is, like, he has a ton of passes that are batted in the air. He's 3rd in the NFL in batted passes, which is pretty wild to think about, because it's not like he's a small quarterback, but that tells you he's staring down a lot of receivers. And when he gets pressured, he throws off the back of the foot. And when you're throwing fadeaways, your arm angle is going to drop, and you have another opportunity to bat passes and just have more chance for tip balls in the air. So I do think that aspect of this game is one that the 49ers have got to 100% must take advantage of. And that's the sack, fumble, the tip ball, the pass that goes up in the air and ricochets off one defender, and they're going to have an opportunity to catch it. It's a matter of will they or not.
Yeah, I truly think that, what decides this game, because I think there's several different things where you see each side match up really well. Like, it's this 49ers offense against this really good Seahawks defense. I think it's going to come down to how Sam Darnold plays in this one, how the 49ers defend against him to try to make things complicated. I mean, we're talking about this 49ers pass rush. It's not that great, right? We would get that. But I think Robert Saleh, despite that, has done a good job of creating pressure, and that pressure being enough to force errant throws or, muddy the picture a little bit. And it's really dependent on the quarterback that he's going up against. Like, I think last week, the 49ers, Robert Saleh did a decent job at, keeping Caleb Williams somewhat in check and in the pocket at least. And I think for Sam Darnold, you kind of want to keep him in the pocket as well, because I did see a stat where he's pretty good outside of the pocket. And
yes,
I think if you keep him in the pocket, but also kind of make his life feel a little more difficult, that's where he starts seeing ghosts, right? And he feels like he's a quarterback that just really feels the pressure. Even if it's not there, if he sees an extra body, it's just like, oh God, I got to get this out kind of thing. So I think that's where the 49ers could take advantage of, but it's really going to depend how Sam Darnold reacts to all of that. But I think that's what's going to be able to swing this game one way or another.
Interior pressure is going to be key here. And when I say interior pressure, so the last couple of weeks, Saleh's kind of dialed it back on just what he does as far as simulated pressures and just twists and games that they run up front. But I think that all goes out of the window, and we see him kind of empty or throw the kitchen sink at Darnold from running a bunch of twists up front, just bringing one guy, dropping another. And that interior pressure is what leads to those fadeaway throws. It's what leads to him just pressing, right? Trying to do too much, playing with happy feet. And once he plays with happy feet, he's a completely different player. I think he goes from one of the better-ish quarterbacks when he's not to when he is pressured, just one of the worst. And that's where that interior pressure really comes into play. So going to be interesting to see if Saleh's hey, I'm going to go down swinging. We're going to play man and we're going to blitz, and how often he does that, because they do have JSN. They do have Shaheed. They have the speed, but you do have to, again, Darnold is at his worst when you pressure him. So you're going to have to make him thread the needle, so to say.
Yeah, I agree. When we were talking about the batted passes, I was thinking Alfred Collins because he's such a big guy. And, there's been times where he's gotten his hands up and he's been able to bat down a pass or two. So, yeah, I think also CJ West, just a good time for the 49ers to get some of these young guys, some good plays. And, they've shown up at different points, right? I think that's the key thing of this defense, too, is that look, they might give up a lot of points and they might not be the best defense. That's an understatement. But they do show up in certain key moments and they make stops when they need to. So I think, man, if they could get a turnover on Sam Darnold, like I said, it could help swing this game. All right, let's see how these two teams match up. I mean, like as we've been saying, it's just so even. It feels like these are two really good teams. And, if you're looking at the EPA per play, just overall on offense, 49ers number 2. On defense, the Seahawks are number 2. Per drop back, 49ers offense number 3. Seahawks defense number 6. Per rush, 49ers offense number 5. Seahawks defense number 2. So I think, yeah, that's really where this matchup may be decided. And then I think also it kind of evens out. Like we talk about this 49ers defense not being so great, but you look at Seahawks offense, not as good as the 49ers is. So maybe that evens things out a little bit for this game.
Yeah, I think if you're stacking units, and I'm willing to go as far as the NFL and not the NFC, I think the 49ers offense and the Seahawks defense, these are probably two of the best 4 or 5 units in the NFL. They are as good as it gets, which is really what makes this whole game fascinating to see, like what matters more, right? Who's able to get over on who's able, because eventually like you can stop the 49ers maybe a couple more drives than usual, but you're probably not going to keep them under 24 points. There aren't many scenarios where you can watch the 49ers and think they're not going to score 3 touchdowns and get a field goal. But on the flip side, Seattle offense, they've just not been very good at all for honestly a good portion of the second half. Since week 11, they are 21st, I believe, they're 21st in EPA per play, 26 in drop back EPA, and then they're 19th in success rate. So on a down-to-down basis, they're pretty below average. And then that's why situationally, whether it's third down, whether it's on just in the red zone, they're middle to bottom in efficiency. So that it really helps the 49ers defense, which in the same stats, like on third down, you mentioned how the 49ers kind of step up in certain situations. They are league average on third down. They are league average in the red zone. And just a couple stops here and there should be enough to at least either keep pace or keep the offense in the game to stick with the Seahawks. So I really, it's weird to say because for the longest, I thought the Seahawks like were going to be the best team in the NFC, but the way that they've been playing offense as of late, it's hard to think that they're going to fix things. Last week against the Panthers, like they didn't do anything at all. The game was 27-10, but it really wasn't like because of the offense. Their first 6 possessions, the Seahawks didn't score. They didn't score until the Panthers really gifted them a really good field position. They had 3 touchdowns, and I think the longest one of those drives were 29 yards. I think it was 21, 25, and 29, if I'm remembering correctly. So, I mean, it's not like this offense has been, I know, 1 week removed from the Rams game, but that feels like more of an outlier if you look at how they've stacked up in all the other weeks.
Yeah, this game for Seattle, it's like if they're going to win, it's going to be because of their defense. And on the other side, if the 49ers win, it's going to be because of their offense, right? So, yeah, really good head-to-head matchup. And there are a lot of like interesting things you could compare as far as stats go. So like 49ers right now through the season have been 2nd in red zone efficiency, right? They've been great. Seahawks defense 7th in red zone scoring percentage allowed. They're also the best third down defense in the league. They've allowed third down conversions at a 32.44% rate. The 49ers have been pretty freaking good on third down like these last few weeks. So it's just one of those things where you don't know how it's going to go. But I agree with you, KP. I think you can maybe limit this 49ers offense, but you can't do it forever, and you're not going to do it every drive. Like the 49ers are going to score points, which gets us to our score prediction here. So let's see. I'm just going to throw this out there. So Seattle's defense is second in points per game. Or sorry, their offense is second in points per game, 29.4. 49ers are eighth. Now, again, this is for the full season, right? 27.1 is what the 49ers have averaged. Just wanted to point out, in the last 3 games, the 49ers are averaging 42.3 points per game, and no team has averaged more points in that span than the Niners have. So again, like when you look at, I mean, you just talked about it, the Seahawks offense, second half of the season, maybe has fizzled out. You look at the 49ers offense, it's quite the opposite. Like they're on the up and up. So it'll be interesting how this one goes, because Seattle's defense is second in points per game allowed. This season, they've allowed 18.1 on average to opponents. So what say you, KP? Who do you got, and how much points are going to get scored here?
I think it's going to be one of the lowest scoring games the 49ers have played in a long time. A lot of that is because Seattle's offense, and I think they're going to bail out the 49ers defense, honestly. So last week, Sam Darnold's running a sacks he has no business running into. Last week, he throws the ball to the Panthers on the very first play, but they drop it. So again, like there will be plenty of times for turnovers, plenty of opportunities, I should say, for turnovers. It's just a matter of whether the 49ers catch it. I think Salah's going to put them in a position to get after Darnold, to confuse Darnold, and it's will they capitalize or not. I also think Seattle's defense is going to look like one of the better units that we've seen in the NFL in the past few years. Will that mean that they completely shut out the 49ers? I don't think so. I don't think anybody's going to shut them out. But I think the expectation that we've seen of the 49ers scoring 30-plus points over the past couple months or so, probably not going to happen. I think the 49ers win, though. I think everything that Seattle does well, they can kind of combat that on offense, and I think the things that they do poorly will be magnified. And again, I think Darnold's issues, the lack of run game, and basically JSN not going off is what I'm counting on here. And that doesn't mean he's going to have 0 yards receiving, but anything around 50 to 70, like that is a win. Remember the Rams game when they held Puka to 98 or 89, whatever it was, it's like it didn't feel like that. So I think it's going to look a lot like that. And I think the 49ers win in a really low scoring game relative to what they've been playing, 23-20.
23-20? Okay. Yeah, I kind of think it'll get over 20 for me. I think I got 49ers 26 and Seattle 24. That's just one I'm trying to speak into existence. I truly feel more than I have in the last few weeks this game could go either way. I mean, for fans of football, this is going to be a great one from start to finish. You know,
probably
it'll come down to the final play.
Yeah,
it's going to come down to the final play.
Who do you think is more dangerous in the playoffs?
So, I mean, yeah, that's tough because, like, I think the 49ers offense is most dangerous, but I think Seahawks defense is most dangerous. So, like, that's the crazy thing and the good thing, in my opinion, about the playoffs that we're heading into is I don't feel like any team, except maybe the Rams. The Rams are probably my biggest concern. I don't think any of these teams are that balanced. Like, they have one thing really well going for them. And so I think that'll be advantage to, you know, any team, right? Like, it really just depends on the matchup. But I don't think there's a team who wants to see this 49ers offense and this 49ers team, like, you know, aside from maybe the Rams. Like, I think the Rams would be like, bring it on. But I still think even that game would be closer than people think, even despite what happened the last time these two teams played. But
I think the Rams, 49ers, and Seahawks are like 3 of the best 5 teams in the NFL.
Yeah.
So when they play each other, it like you have no idea what's going to happen. That's what it was like when the Rams played the Seahawks a couple weeks ago. Like, even though they both scored 39, 38, whatever it was, like nobody would have predicted that just because they're so unpredictable. But when these teams get outside and play somebody else, like that's when you can kind of see the NFC West flex their muscles. So I don't think any team would want to play Seattle's defense. I don't think any team would want to face the 49ers offense or the Rams offense. So, yeah, it's going to be a really fun playoffs because the matchups are going to determine everything. And I guess if you're the 49ers, you're kind of hoping somebody else knocks out the Seahawks and Rams so you don't have to play them for a third time. But, yeah, it's really tough to bet against Kyle Shanahan in a playoff setting, knowing what he's going to go up against. And I know the defense has not been good at all, but the way that they've been humming on offense it is as close to 2023 as more than I would have ever imagined. I thought 2023 would never happen again or come close. And the fact that they're even sniffing towards 2023's production.
It's looking better. Like, yeah, I think Brock Purdy looks better than he did in 2023.
I would agree with that. I think he's having to do more, which kind of says something. The running game, it's probably not 2023 level just because McCaffrey's not as explosive, but over the past 3 weeks, like since the bye, they're really starting to figure it out. So like, who knew, right? Playing an offensive line the same game, having a left guard in there really helps. Having George Kittle will really help. Having wide receivers who block really helps. So they're all starting to come together. And it's been really fun to watch.
Seattle is the Jake Paul of the NFL. I like that. Well, hopefully we see a knockout.
Because, like, as we're talking about, these are the 3 best teams in the NFC, probably. It would not surprise me to see Seattle lose in the first round. It wouldn't surprise me to see the Rams lose in the first round or the 49ers because
anything could happen. Yeah,
like they all have their flaws as well.
Yeah, I think this playoffs is going to be more exciting than other ones we've seen because of that. There's just so much parity, even in the AFC side. Like I think it's anyone's Super Bowl this year. That should make for a great playoffs, and it should make for a great week 18 game for the 49ers, for Seattle. It's going to be super entertaining. Like I said, if you're a fan of football, it's going to be a good one. If you're a 49ers fan, Seahawks fan, you're going to be biting your nails and maybe have heart attacks throughout this one, but we're going to enjoy ourselves doing it. But good luck to everyone going to the game. You know, don't get too wet out there, and get loud. I'm really excited, you know, see what the rivalry jerseys look like in person. Primetime game, you know, maybe that makes them look a little bit different. Do you like them, KP? Do you like the rivalry jerseys?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I'm not like the biggest fan of them. I will always default to what they wore last week, I think. But
those are the cleanest.
To me, like, it's not really close. Yeah.
And Kyle Shanahan said the same thing. He's like, those are his favorite. The rivalry helmets throw me off. Like something about it just doesn't sit right with me. But maybe they'll grow on me as I see this game. Sometimes, you know, and some people love them, you know. But yeah, we'll enjoy this one. I'm like, I haven't done a show in so long. I'm like forgetting what my like closing remarks are. Usually I'd say like, thanks to everyone that tuned in. Make sure you guys like this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. See, I found my groove. Audio listeners, leave a rating, leave a review. And just one final thing, actually. If you guys haven't checked out Niners Nation preview, check that out. KP wrote a really nice preview with a lot of great stats. Some that he mentioned here, some that he probably didn't. So make sure you guys check that out. Feel like you know everything going into that matchup tomorrow. But for now, have a good rest of your Friday, folks. Game day tomorrow. Peace.